What is going on? My name is Psyche and welcome back to Dead Cells. Today, after a long pause, I'm finally going to go back to playing Brutality. And this time around, I'm going to feature a bleeding type of build with the blood sword as well as the throwing knife. So I get a lot of people that are not subscribed watching my videos, which is probably a very good sign. But anyways, in case you are not familiar, I post Dead Cells content in the form of both guides as well as 5 BC runs, just like this one. So if any of that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you don't like what you see, you can always just unsubscribe. So without further ado, let's get into the run. So just starting off in the prisoner's quarters, not too much to say here. I normally just spend around 2 minutes of video footage going through this first biome. And honestly, it's not too interesting, and I really just show the parts where I get hit, or I fight some interesting encounters. But as you can see here, for once, I'm not actually doing too well right now. But fortunately though, you are allowed to make some degree of mistakes, even in the early game. It's not very too punishing because, I mean, even if you die right now, you just go back to the beginning anyways. But I'm going to move forward to the toxic sewers. Because I think it's the best biome in the early game so far because it gives you the most amount of scroll fragments, which is always good. And if you're wondering why I don't have my full loadout at the beginning of the game, this is because I do all of my runs in normal mode because I think that's how you're supposed to play the game. I've had some comments saying that there are both sides to the argument whether or not custom mode or normal mode are better. I personally feel like normal mode tests your decision-making skills as a player, and you'll often end up with builds that you might not be expecting you were going to do. But if you play on custom mode, I feel like the runs are a bit more linear. There is really only one direction you can go. And I know I'm falling a bit behind on commentary here, but I jumped into a pit of poison and I found the throwing knife in the shop, and then I decided to dual bind it with the blood sword so I can make a fully bleed-centered synergy. Even with as my first mutation choice, I picked up open wounds to even increase that bleeding even further. For those that don't know, if you get enough bleed stacks on an enemy, I believe it's 5, then they just take a burst amount of damage and then the bleeding stacks get reset. I could be wrong about that. They might keep going or they might get reset. I'm not too sure. But this loadout will almost be the exact same loadout that I will go with for the remainder of the run. All I needed to do at this point was to find an upgraded blood sword and I'll pretty much be good to go. Now I'm recording the commentary of this video as of releasing the broadsword build video. I've been getting a lot of comments saying that I kind of react earlier than what I do in the video, and then people are kind of confused. So the reason for this is that I actually do the cuts of the run from my editing software, and then I export it with a poorer quality, so in like 720p. Obviously, I'm not going to upload that version of the game. Also, moving forwards to the corrupted prison, what I did here is that I dual binded the button for the infantry grenade to be the same as my blood sword, so it's kind of like a triple bind, but I didn't really like it because it kept on making this sound effect where the skill wasn't ready, and I just didn't really like that it's always there every time I press the square button, so I decided to just switch it back. Anyways, after I export the cut video where there is no commentary, I go into a separate room and then I record the commentary from there and just kind of react to everything. The reason that I don't do it the same time as on my desktop is because the room that I'm in has pretty poor audio quality. I've tried to record commentary in the same room on my Fatal Falls tier list video, and if you go to that video right now, you'll see just how bad the audio quality is compared to the normal videos. So that's basically the reason why. That's why my commentary is a bit ahead as opposed to what's going on in the video, because after I do the commentary, I have to go into a audio editing software. I edit out all the parts where I make mistakes, such as stutters, though I will leave some of them in. After the entire commentary segment has been cut out, of all the imperfect cuts removed from the commentary, then usually the commentary is about a couple minutes shorter than the actual video itself. So I have to put it back into the project in my video editing software, and then I have to skim past the parts where there's a mismatch between the commentary and what's actually going on. So that's the reason why sometimes the commentaries get a bit messed up and it doesn't get completely in sync with what's going on in the video. This is obviously something that I'm always trying to improve, but lately I've been trying to experiment with shorter videos. So when I first started out my channel, I first wanted my 5BC runs to be around 30 to 45 minutes long, but now I've been leaning more towards 20 to 30 minutes, though now that I'm even considering making that even shorter, so maybe make it just a bit over 20 minutes long. So I want to know what you guys think. Should I make shorter videos or should I make it the same as before? Because I've been getting some comments saying that they would rather want to see shorter videos, and I think it helps with the retention rate. And obviously I wanted to maximize the amount people actually watch before they click off the video. But moving forwards onto the Ancient Sewers, I've decided I wanted to fight Conjunctivius in this, obviously because Concierge was just not a very good choice. And I wanted to see if this build can handle Conjunctivius, though I'm pretty sure that it can. It has a lot of DOT effects, which can work against Conjunctivius. For people that don't know, DOT refers to damage over time, also known as DOT. These are the type of builds that have a lot of small instances of damage. So basically like bleeding, poison, and shock damage, because a lot of these builds, it actually bypasses the damage cap for bosses. As far as I know, if you hit a boss with a single attack, then you can only do so much damage before it's stopped by the boss damage cap. But if you have a lot of small instances of damage, then you can potentially bypass that. So anyways, moving forwards onto the Conjunctivius boss fight, I have a bit of trouble kind of luring it to where I am. I thought the grappling hook was going to help, but it only worked sometimes. And I just had a lot of trouble getting Conjunctivius to where it was. But it's not really an issue considering that I do a lot of damage with the setup with the dual bind throwing knife as well as the blood sword. And already we're going to move forward to the first tentacle phase. The tentacles are pretty slow. I mean, this time around I'm the one that's grabbing the tentacles, so at least grappling hook has some use here. I mean, I know that the blood sword has been nerfed in the latest update, I believe in 2.1. Though from what I can tell, it's actually still pretty solid. I'm just gonna throw the cleaver in the middle. I thought it could do some damage to Conjunctivius, even though she's kind of floating above the air. Again, I try to use the grappling hook. It actually connects, but I don't think it pulls Conjunctivius towards you. Yeah, so there it is again. I'm not sure if that actually worked. I'm pretty positive I've seen it work at least once before, so I thought you could actually do it. But I guess it only works some of the time. And already we're at the second tentacle phase, so this fight's going on pretty well so far. I haven't even been hit, still looking good for the no hit. Again, just going to focus on the tentacles and going to kill them one by one. Conjunctivius is definitely one of those bosses that took me a lot of time of getting used to. The first time that I no-hit Conjunctivius, it was pretty hard. Like, you have to know the exact movesets of the tentacles because that's the phase where I usually get hit from. But fortunately now I've been getting a lot better at this fight, and we're just going to do the job, finish up this fight and be done with it. Hopefully I can get the no-hit, but we will see. Trying to play a bit defensively because I don't know what Conjunctivius is trying to do. I mean, a lot can go wrong in this fight actually. But thankfully, she just came down here and let me get some free hits. And I think just after this attack, Conjunctivius will be down, and there has been the fight. Conjunctivius is down, and that was a no-hit. So I'm going to go into the graveyard. This is just a very solid biome in general, though at this point, I still have to upgrade my blood sword because the one that I have right now is still the 4th tier, which was the one that I got in the very beginning of the game. Though it really goes to show that the beginning weapons that you get are still viable, even this late into the runs. But luckily at this point, I pretty much have the build cemented. I know in my broadsword video, a lot of people said, you know, why are you getting the broadsword at like 17 minutes? That's basically already over half of the run. You can't really call that as a broadsword build, and I really get it. I never thought that would be an issue when I recorded the video, because what I did is that I really emphasized the beginning parts of the run, since I wasn't sure how long I had until I got the broadsword. So if you look at the video, and if you look at the early game that I got, you'll notice that I actually have the ice shards in my backpack like way before I got the broadsword, and this is because I was actually setting up to get a slow melee weapon as I was going through the biomes. So really the heavy crossbow that I used was just a placeholder. You'll see that when I dropped it, it was still in the 1st tier, so the 4th tier actually. So I never got upgrades for the heavy crossbow, I just carried it because I used it as a placeholder. And even the mutations that I picked in that video, so I believe I picked Frostbite and then Kill Rhythm and something else I forgot, But all of those mutations worked with broadsword, and it was really just a matter of time before I found it in the shops, but unfortunately I never found it. And also, I'm just going to lift this curse really easily. Not too much to say. With the small enemies running around, and with the really powerful nature of the Bloodsword, it's just able to handle these monsters with ease. The one complaint that I have about the Bloodsword is that it has really low breach power, so it's very rare that enemies get stunned while you're using the Bloodsword. So sometimes you still have to be on the defensive, but here I'm just going to kill like the small squishy enemies and move on forwards to the parts where it's actually interesting. A lot of people have said that I need to improve my commentary skills, and I think I would agree. I definitely have a lot of parts where I stutter or repeat things, or just use like the same words over and over. I believe it will get better with time, but we will see. Anyways, I'm going to go into the Cavern and decide to fight Giant, I believe. Giant is just really weak to any type of DOT build actually. But at some point I picked up the Predator mutation, because I mean, if you think about it, you kill an enemy real quick, you get invincibility, and then you just rinse and repeat, and they'll never hit you back. And I thought because the Bloodsword had a small breach, you could really stun enemies, so I thought this could be like a perfect balance to kind of just make it more viable. And so far it's been working out pretty well, though sometimes some enemies I believe cannot be afflicted status effects such as the demons. I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure demons cannot be burned or something. And the main issues that I fight in the Cavern will definitely be the ground shakers, since I don't believe they can be stunned. So I am gonna have to move in to get some damage in and then just move out really quick so I don't get overwhelmed, though the grappling hook does create that momentum. I know it gives you like a small frame where you are just invincible, they can't hit you back, and I think that's one of the reasons why the grappling hook is so good, though as you see later I am going to switch it out for something else. Because I mean, if you look at it, this build is really focused on bleeding synergy, and it would be pretty cool if I had all 4 items where it afflicted bleeding. And this was the perfect opportunity to get those upgrades, considering that the Cavern gives you the most upgraded items in the entire game. So I'm going to get the Sinew Slicer, so now we have a all bleeding setup, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I want. You'll see later that I haven't actually upgraded the Bloodsword yet, so the one I'm using right now is actually still the one that I got in the beginning of the game. So it really goes to show that even if you don't get the upgrades that you're looking for, the items that you get in the beginning are still very much viable. I've seen people beat runs where they literally used the items they got, like right from the beginning, and they just never found upgrades, and they just carried it throughout the entire run. So really, the Legendary Forge doesn't matter that much. As long as you have the right synergy, any type of build can work in my opinion, and Dead Cells is all about experimentation anyways. So I'm just gonna fight this elite demon, and you'll see just how short that took. Even with the beginner sword, though, you will see that I get an upgrade for it later in the biome. Oh, and also on my Breadsword video, I've been getting a lot of comments saying that, you know, you're commenting for the algorithm, you're liking the videos for the algorithm, and yeah, that's very, very much appreciated. I appreciate all of you for doing that, though I just want to remind you that you're not obligated to like or comment. Obviously, on YouTube, you decide how to watch your videos. I know that a lot of people have a lot of other channels in their subscription feed, and you don't have a lot of time. That's totally understandable, and in that shop, as you saw, I don't know if you saw that, but there was a Bloodsword, a tier 12 Bloodsword that had a double damage affix, though I was kind of just too scared, and I wasn't sure if double damage even worked with DOT effects, such as bleeding, so I decided to leave it until I left the biome. And then I went back to pick it up so I can reroll the affixes in the transition room. Given that I'm a brutality build and I don't have a lot of defensive capabilities, I didn't want to risk anything, so I decided to just leave it until I left the biome. Hopefully that doesn't make me a bad player. But I believe so far I have no-hitted the Cavern so far, so things have been going really well for me. This build is just extremely powerful. And there I just got the tier 12 Bloodsword, which was quite an upgrade. I mean, from the 4th tier to the 12th, that's like the lowest tier all the way to the highest in one go. So anyways, gonna go into the giant fight. You'll see just how powerful the bleeding is in this fight. It's just able to melt through the giant with ease. I know you can place the turrets on top of the fists, and you'll see me try to do that in a second. I think here, I tried to put the Sinew Slicer onto the fist. I know it's definitely doable, but I never really tried it, and I just kind of failed that time. You'll see me try to do it again later, and then you'll see whether or not I succeed. I mean, in a short period of time, I'm already able to get the giant down to half HP. Gonna do one more set of attacks. I think one more is going to do it. Just gonna kind of chip away at the fist. And here, yeah, I'm going to get the sinew slicer, and it actually got onto the fist that time. So I was really thankful that I did, but finally we're able to no-hit the giant. And I'm going to go into the distillery because I had 2 scroll fragments, and I wanted to finish it off because at this point I still had 28 scroll stats, and I really wanted it to be a bit higher. Because if I just skipped distillery, then I would have ended up with 30. But it doesn't really hurt to kind of get more chances to get more scrolls and make sure that I finish off the scroll fragments that I had, so I'll have at least 31 when I get to Hand of the King. This was a point that I said in my biomes guide, since it's always in your best interest to maximize your scroll stats, because as you get into the higher difficulties, every single scroll stat is going to count. So I'm just going to go get the distillery key. And I believe I haven't found the scroll fragments that I needed to finish off my scroll stats yet, but I will get there soon. Don't worry about it. And a lot of my synergies come from bleeding. I skipped forward a lot in that little jump cut there, but basically I finished off the scroll stats, so now I have 30. I believe at this point I'm still trying to find the ones that are still left in the distillery so I can have just a bit more scroll stats before I get to Hand of the King. I believe the highest I've ever gone when I beat 5 BC in terms of scroll stats was 37, and that was in my Spite Sword video. Generally speaking, you're going to have around 32. I mean, if you have 30 or like 34, anything higher is obviously better. But at 30, anything under 30 I would say is pushing it a little, and you probably just missed out on some challenge rifts, or you just missed out on like curse chests, or you just picked up a really bad route to go through. But anyways, just melting through Hand of the King right now. I mean, at this point, he's only initiated like 3 or 4 attacks, and already we're going to go into the enemy phase, and I'm just going to prioritize the disgusting worms. And obviously I don't want them to interfere with the fight once Hand of the King comes down. He's gonna do one more attack, and already there is the fight, no-hit Hand of the King as well. So we have no-hit 3 out of the 4 bosses in this run so far. Can I no-hit the last boss? Well, we will just see, so keep watching and you will find out. I'm going to move forwards into the Astrolab, so the final portions of the game. And by this point, my build is just solidified. It's just extremely powerful. I would have really liked to have a Hokuto's bow at this point, but obviously Hokuto's bow is now tactics only, and I think even if I got it off color, it's still a bit awkward because I still have to pick up Acrobat Pack, which is a tactics mutation. So really, I don't think Hokuto's bow will help me out too much here, but I would really like to have it, and this was one of the reasons why DOT builds were just so strong back in like before 2.1, because Hokuto's bow just kind of amplified every single instance of damage, so every single tick that you get from bleeding get amplified, at least its damage get amplified by Hokuto's bow. So I'm just going to get 2 elites, get their keys, and I'm going to go into the tower area. I don't really like to post too much footage of this place because it's not really that interesting, so I'm just going to skim forward. Again, in this video I'm trying to experiment with a shorter run duration, so let me know how it goes. I'm setting a goal for around 22 minutes for this video, so we'll see how it goes. I'm just going to show the parts where I get hit because it shows that I'm not very good at the game, and it clears up any type of confusions that I have of how I took damage, how much health I have. So I'm also going to show the parts where I get the food, obviously, so just like here, pick up the cheese, and I'm going to keep going. Again, not too much to say about the tower area, it's not really that interesting, though the first couple of times it is pretty scary because one of those beam attacks can potentially kill you. Going to do the cheese with the 2 slammers, get the food, and I'm going to go into the final boss fight, onto the Observatory. I'm going to switch out the throwing knife with a bloodthirsty shield because I've said this a lot of times before, but I feel a lot more confident in this fight if I had a shield. And besides, the bloodthirsty shield also applied bleeding anyway, so it really fit in with the theme of the build. And obviously I unbinded the dual bind with the throwing knife, so really it's still the same core build, it's just that I've switched it around a little bit. So here, finally, I'm going to go into the Collector boss fight. Let's see how well this goes. But as you can see, I'm just melting through this boss right now, just gonna land a parry, and already just after this ground slam attack, I'm going to get him to do the first heal. Obviously do some parries, The Bloodthirsty Shield, again, just a very nice item. Though because everything else that I had also applied bleeding, it made it even better. And you see how like the status effects above the collector is like just getting filled up. Like I'm pretty sure there were like 10 instances of poison on top of his head at some point. But anyways, getting teleported into the enemy room, not really a problem. Just gonna go ahead and kill the enemies and just hammer the collector once again. And there we are. And there was the third heal. So I got 2 right off the bat before I even got teleported to the enemy room. And 1 over here. So finally I'm going to get moved into the final room. And this will be the final stretch of the game. Can I no-hit this boss? Well, just watch and find out. Gonna do 1 more parry against the spin attack. And just like that, I'm going to get the Panacea, knock the potion out of hands, drink it, and there we go. After this ground slam attack, there was the fight. So what a amazing run that I have. I honestly did not expect it would be this powerful, because in this build, in this run, this was my first time no-hitting every single boss. I had a lot of fun with the bleeding synergy, so hopefully you have enjoyed it as well. This has been a comeback to brutality builds because I know I've been focusing on the other colors a lot. The next run that I have planned will feature a really interesting tanking build, and you'll see exactly what that is. I'm just going to kind of leave it as a mystery just like that. Though I'm going to give you a hint, it does involve the Force Shield, which is an item that I just rarely use. And surprise, I'm actually going to use it in tactics. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.